Hi, friends. Thanks for joining me for today's crafty adventure. It's all about this beautiful stamp, pattern paper layers, and adding some fun shine using mica powders. I'm featuring the beautiful stamp set from Unity Stamp Company called Sweet as Honey. Has this gorgeous flower and darling little bee. So let's get to assembling this card. I have pre-stamped my flowers and bee on some regular white cardstock, and I'm using Gina K amalgam ink because I wasn't sure if I was going to watercolor or use Copics, and I know that that ink can go either way. And then I'm using some distress inks to watercolor with. I'll be using abandoned coral, dried marigold, mustard seed, peel paint, and rustic wilderness. And they'll be smushed onto this craft mat that I like to use. It's a media mat from Waffle Flower. And then I add just a hint of water to each square and then use my water brush to paint on the color to my cardstock. Now, since this is cardstock, I'm being very careful not to do a lot of rubbing or using a lot of water. That will cause the paper to start to pill up, kind of peel away, and not look so pretty. So I am just embracing wherever that color lands. I can always come back and add some more. I do like to use the least amount of water as possible, but you can build it up, let it dry, and then add some more. It will not blend like watercolor will blend on watercolor paper, but I like that look. I kind of like that it's defined and separated. It has a very different feel to it than watercolor does, and that's something that I particularly enjoy, that style of watercolor look. If that's not your jam, just stamp on watercolor paper. You can use the same ink or watercolor friendly ink and then watercolor that way. And it is more forgiving, so a lot of people find that easier to do. So I'm just going along filling in all my flowers. I'm leaving a lot of white space at the tips because that's where I'm going to come in and add the gold later. But if you fill that in with color, it's not a bad thing. The mica will layer over top with no problem. So I'm just kind of coloring along, doing whatever makes me happy. And I'm just using two colors, the abandoned coral and the dried marigold. And those two just kind of create a variation of color that I really enjoyed on those flowers. They kind of match my pattern papers later as well, so that's why I ended up picking those two colors. Now I've just moved on to the leaves, doing the same type of watercoloring, a light layer of the lighter color, and then just a hint of the darker color. And I mixed those two together because the tones were a little bit different. So I mixed them together so they would match a little better. And I'm just adding the darker color to the base of the leaves or anywhere that it might be behind something else where it would be darker. So super easy peasy, keeping my water light, and I let that dry. Next, I'm going to come in and add a little bit of yellow. This is fossilized amber. I think I said mustard seed, and that's wrong. This is fossilized amber, and I'm going to come in and do the center of the flowers and then add just a hint to the bee. Next comes the mica pigment powder from Unity Stamp Company. This is a new product with them, and I don't have all my supplies or all my techniques quite down yet. It's been a while since I've played with this, so I'm going to be doing a variety of different techniques as I get more comfortable with these mica powders. So the first one, I'm just going to add it into my watercolor. It's super easy to do. You can do it this way. Mica powder is just the pigment. It's not like any other type of medium. It's just what adds color to whatever you add it to. Say you add it to water, say you add it to paint, you add it to paste. It's adding the color to that medium. So there's no bonder in it. It requires something else to help it to really adhere to the paper so it doesn't rub off. I was thinking that the Distress ink has a bonder in it, which it does, but it wasn't strong enough for the mica powder that I added to it. Not a bad thing. It doesn't flake off like crazy, but if you rub your finger over it, it will rub off onto your finger a little bit. So if you do choose to just use water or just use some type of watercolor medium like this, you need a fixative. And there's lots of different fixatives out there. People use hairspray, which you could, but it's not archival, so it will tend to yellow over time. So I wouldn't risk that, but you could use it. I have a couple fixatives from Krylon. One is called Workable Fixative, and the other one's like Clear something. Either one works. It just creates a seal, and then that mica powder won't rub off if you take your finger and rub it. If it's just sitting there, it probably won't come off and it'll be fine. So once that was done, I set it aside to dry, and I'm just going to start layering everything up. I have the adorable pattern papers from Calico Country. I just love these. I don't know why, they feel like grandma patterns. Like it's my grandma's wallpaper and the house dresses she used to wear, her slippers, her couch. Like all of these things remind me of my grandma. So I really love them. And I'm just layering them up, big scallops and rectangles dies to layer up the pattern papers, added a bit of string, and then I'm just going to fussy cut out the flowers and the bee. I'm just going to make that one big fussy cut image. And then I'm going to layer that almost in the center of my panel so it sits on top of that bow. And then I'm just going to leave a little bit of room for my sentiment to kind of hide under that bow and go over the top of those flowers. I did pop that up with some foam tape. I like that to mention. And then I popped up the sentiment as well. If that's too many layers, you could just easily glue that sentiment right down onto those flowers. And then here is the final look. I just love that golden shine from the mica powders. They are so fun to use, and I have lots more ideas coming and different mediums that we can use those with. So stick around and keep an eye out for those. And as always, I'll have all my supplies listed in the description of this video and on my Dahlhouse-Designs blog. Thank you so much for joining me and crafting with me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.